What if everything you've ever wanted is just on the other side of the fears you've been too afraid to face? Every day, countless people wake up feeling unfulfilled, silently carrying the weight of dreams deferred and potential unexplored. They go through the motions, working, surviving, existing, but deep down something feels missing. It's not talent they lack or even opportunity, it's belief. Belief that they are worthy of more. Belief that change is possible. Belief that life doesn't have to be a series of compromises, but a bold expression of purpose and passion. The real battle isn't happening in the outside world. It's happening inside. The internal war between the voice that says, I can, and the one that whispers, why bother? Between playing it safe and stepping into the unknown, between staying in the familiar pain or risking growth. And for most, that fear of the unknown wins. But imagine just for a moment what life could look like if those fears no longer held power over you. Imagine waking up with clarity, energy, and the unshakable knowing that you are in control of your destiny. Imagine breaking free from the expectations, doubts, and invisible chains that have held you back for far too long. That version of you is not a fantasy, it's real, it's waiting. Truth, and it begins the moment you stop accepting limitations as truth and start seeing them as illusions to be shattered. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more, that feeling isn't random. It's a signal, a call, and it's time to answer. For many people, life becomes a routine, a predictable cycle of responsibilities, obligations, and quiet resignation. We wake up, go to work, manage tasks, and fall asleep, only to repeat it all again the next day. Somewhere along the way, the dreams we once had begin to fade. The excitement we felt as children about what life could be gets buried under layers of self-doubt, fear, and limiting beliefs. It's not that we don't want more. Deep down, we do. We crave fulfillment, connection, purpose, and growth. But the noise of everyday life, the weight of past failures, and the fear of uncertainty convince us that maybe this is just the way things are. What makes it worse is that these limitations often don't come from the outside world. They are internal. They're the stories we tell ourselves. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the right background. It's too late for me, or people like me don't succeed. These thoughts become our reality. We lower our standards, we accept less, and we begin to settle, not because we lack potential, but because we've been conditioned to believe we don't deserve more. The truth is, most of us aren't living anywhere near our full capacity. We're running on autopilot, guided by outdated beliefs and unchallenged fears. Somewhere along the way, we learned to play small. We stopped dreaming boldly and started managing expectations. We let comfort take priority over growth. And while this might feel safe, it also leaves us feeling stagnant, unfulfilled, and disconnected from the life we truly want to live. But it doesn't have to stay this way. The ability to create lasting change is within everyone. The process begins with awareness, becoming conscious of the limiting beliefs and habits that shape our current reality. Once we recognize them, we can challenge them, we can rewrite the script. Life doesn't have to be a passive experience. It can be an intentional journey, one where you choose to grow, to evolve, and to live fully. The question isn't whether change is possible. The real question is whether you're willing to stop living by the limitations of your past and start stepping into the possibilities of your future. The greatest obstacle standing between most people and the life they desire isn't a lack of resources, intelligence, or opportunity. It's the silent, persistent voice of limitation that whispers in the background of their thoughts. This voice is subtle, often going unnoticed, yet it shapes decisions, actions, and outcomes. It says, you're not ready. You don't have what it takes, or you're too late. These beliefs become internal truths, guiding behavior and defining what a person believes is possible for them. Over time, they build a reality based not on potential, but on perceived limitations. These challenges don't always appear dramatic. Often they show up as hesitation to pursue a goal, the tendency to procrastinate, or the decision to remain in a situation that no longer serves growth. People become experts at rationalizing their limitations, telling themselves stories to justify staying where they are. It's not the right time. I need more experience. Maybe next year. These rationalizations become habits, and those habits shape a life that looks nothing like the one they truly want to live. What makes this cycle so difficult to break is that it often operates beneath the surface. It's not always a conscious choice to stay stuck. It's a conditioned pattern learned from past experiences, societal expectations, or even well-meaning people who projected their own fears onto others. As a result, many individuals end up constructing lives that feel safe, but are actually built on fear. Fear of failure, judgment, rejection, or the unknown. The real challenge is recognizing that these limitations are self-imposed. They may have been shaped by external events, but they're maintained internally. Until a person becomes aware of how these beliefs are driving their life, they will continue to repeat the same patterns year after year, wondering why true progress feels just out of reach. The problem is not a lack of desire or ambition. The problem is the mental and emotional framework that's keeping that desire trapped. Breaking free from these invisible chains requires more than wishful thinking. It demands honest self-reflection, a willingness to challenge deeply held beliefs, and the courage to step into discomfort. Only by confronting these limitations directly can a person begin to create meaningful, lasting change. The question then becomes not whether the life you want is possible, but whether you're ready to let go of the beliefs that are telling you it isn't. Change begins the moment we decide to challenge the thoughts that have silently dictated our lives. Many people operate under the illusion that their current reality is fixed, that who they are, what they have, and where they're headed are all predetermined. But in truth, the mind is incredibly malleable. The way we think, feel, and act is largely shaped by patterns that once identified can be restructured. The process of transformation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about shedding the layers that were never truly yours to begin with. One of the first steps in breaking free from limitations is mastering emotional awareness. Emotions drive behavior. When fear, frustration, or doubt dominate the internal landscape, the choices we make will reflect those feelings. But emotions are not facts, they are signals. Learning to observe them without being ruled by them is a powerful turning point. It creates space between stimulus and response, allowing intentional action to replace automatic reaction. In addition to emotional awareness, our daily habits serve as a mirror to our deeper beliefs. Small, consistent actions often reveal what we believe about our worth, our capacity, and our future. A person who subconsciously believes they don't deserve success may repeatedly self-sabotage, procrastinate, or avoid opportunities. To reverse this, new rituals must be established. Rituals that reinforce a new identity, morning routines, goal setting, visualization, and physical movement all play a role in rewiring both the brain and body toward empowerment. Another key element is raising personal standards. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of what we accept. When someone decides that mediocre relationships, poor health, or financial struggle are no longer acceptable, they begin to operate differently. Their choices, boundaries, and level of commitment all shift to match their new internal expectations. Surroundings also play a crucial role in shaping one's mindset. The people we spend time with influence how we think, what we believe, and what we consider normal. Choosing to engage with growth-minded individuals can create a ripple effect, elevating perspective and encouraging accountability. Ultimately, transformation is not a one-time decision, it's a daily practice. It requires courage, consistency, and a willingness to step into the unknown, but every step forward chips away at the walls of limitation, revealing a life that was always possible, just waiting to be claimed. There comes a moment when something shifts. It might not be loud or dramatic. In fact, it often happens quietly. In the middle of an ordinary day, a single thought, a realization, rises to the surface and refuses to be ignored. I can't live like this anymore. That moment, though it may seem small, is the beginning of everything. It's the crack in the foundation of self-imposed limitations, the first light breaking through years of doubt, fear, and self-sabotage. It is the instant when a person stops blaming the world and starts reclaiming their power. In that key moment, the stories that have kept someone stuck lose their grip. The justifications, the excuses, the belief that changes for other people, all of it begins to unravel. What was once seen as impossible now appears within reach, not because the external world has changed, but because a new internal stance has emerged. It's a shift from helplessness to ownership, from resignation to resolve. A decision is made not out of desperation, but from clarity. I am no longer available for a life that doesn't align with who I know I can be. This turning point is often uncomfortable. It brings up resistance, fear, and even grief for the time lost, but it also ignites a fire. With it comes the understanding that failure is no longer something to fear, it's part of growth. That discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a sign of expansion. And most importantly, that no one is coming to save you because you don't need saving. You just need to choose differently. From this moment on, the lens through which life is viewed begins to change. Opportunities are seen where obstacles once stood. Strength is found in vulnerability. Confidence is born not from perfection, but from action. And slowly, the person who once felt confined by limitation begins to evolve into someone unrecognizable, someone powerful, purposeful, and free. It's not a magical moment, it's a conscious one. A person wakes up to their own potential and decides to take full responsibility for their life. That is the moment everything begins to change. Not because the path ahead is easy, but because for the first time, they truly believe they're capable of walking it. The journey toward breaking free from limitations is not a straight line. It is a winding path filled with resistance, doubt, and uncertainty. Yet, it is also a path of awakening, one that reveals a truth often forgotten. We are not as stuck as we think we are. The power to change our lives has always resided within us. It simply needed to be acknowledged, claimed, and directed with intention. For many, the realization doesn't come in one grand moment, but through a series of small shifts, moments of courage, clarity, and conscious choice. Throughout life, we adopt beliefs, habits, and behaviors that are meant to protect us. At one point, they served a purpose, but as we grow, many of these patterns become outdated, even harmful. They build walls around our potential, convincing us that what we've known is all there is. Yet, when we begin to question those patterns, when we examine where they came from and whether they still serve us, we create space for something new. That space becomes fertile ground for transformation. Real change happens when we stop waiting for the right time, the right people, or the right circumstances. It happens when we accept that the only constant in our lives is our ability to choose. We can choose new thoughts. We can choose new standards. We can choose new actions that align with the person we truly want to be. It's not about denying past mistakes or pretending challenges don't exist. It's about choosing to grow in spite of them, to rise above the old narrative and to live from a place of possibility rather than fear. The path to living your best life doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's about making peace with where you've been and committing to where you're going. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to try again, willing to believe again, willing to become who you were always capable of being. In the end, limitations lose their power the moment we stop feeding them. And from that space of truth, life begins, not as a passive experience, but as a bold, intentional act of creation. This is your moment, not tomorrow. Not someday, now. The voice inside you that whispers, you were meant for more, isn't a fantasy, it's a signal. It's your deeper self urging you to break free from the patterns, fears, and excuses that have held you back. The life you truly want doesn't begin with a massive leap. It begins with a single decision to stop settling, to stop shrinking, to stop living on autopilot. The change you crave won't come from the outside. It starts with you. Start by getting honest. What belief has been quietly ruling your life? What story do you tell yourself when things get hard? Write it down. Look at it clearly. Then ask yourself, is this belief serving me or is it sabotaging me? That awareness is your first step toward freedom, because once you see the cage, you can begin to dismantle it. Choose one action today that supports the life you want. Not a massive overhaul, but a simple shift. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier to invest in your goals. Maybe it's saying no to something that drains you or yes to something that excites you. Small changes done consistently build unstoppable momentum. Surround yourself with people who lift you, challenge you, and remind you of your worth. Protect your mind like it's sacred ground, because it is. What you feed it will grow. So feed it hope, feed it truth, feed it strength. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait until you feel ready. Ready is a lie. You become ready by moving forward in the face of doubt. Life will not pause for you to catch up. The time to act is now. You are more powerful than you've been led to believe. And you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to begin. So take the step, even if it's shaky, even if it's small, because that step is the beginning of a life on your terms, one that feels alive, aligned, and deeply yours. Start now. Your future's waiting.